Silent Hill 2 is known for being one of the greatest psychological horror games ever made. Within the game lie many terrifying and disturbing enemy creations, from the dark origins of the Pyramid Head, to the tragic symbolism of the Abstract Daddy, all the way to the terrifying creature manifestations. These enemies' disturbing origins will leave you shocked. Here is the lore of every Silent Hill 2 enemy. Lying figures are humanoid monsters appearing in the streets of Silent Hill. It is the first creature that James Sunderland encounters in his journey through the town. James Sunderland and his wife Mary toured Silent Hill while on vacation. Afterwards, Mary fell into a terminal illness, and over the next 3 years, experienced a turbulent marriage, crippling symptoms, and hospitalizations. Following her eventual demise, James received a letter from Silent Hill in her handwriting, claiming to be from her. In denial about the circumstances of her death, James traveled back to the town to investigate. There, he fell into a paranormal dream state known as the Fog World, which manifested aspects of his unconscious mind into physical form. Upon entering South Vale, he discovered a trail of blood smeared across the streets and a silhouette wandering in the distance. He followed the trail to a tunnel where he was shocked to discover a lying figure lingering in the darkness. He beat it to death in a confrontation, in return to find scores of them now loitering the streets. He encountered more in the buildings and other areas before reaching Brookhaven Hospital. After the hospital transitioned to the other world, lying figures were present in the Labyrinth and Tolika prison. Lying figures are a physical manifestation of the memory of his sick wife on her deathbed and his internal suffering, taking the appearance of a hospital patient writhing in agony. As physical manifestations of James Sunderland's subconscious, the lying figures are among the 9 creatures tied to the 9 red squares. The creature's upper torso is a body bag, the sign of a corpse, from which it writhes from side to side. Its movements represent a hospital patient squirming in agony, and the creatures were born from James's feeling of confinement. The name lying figure refers to both Mary's corpse and Mary in her sickbed. When James came into contact with the first lying figure, he had no conscious memory of how Mary really died. But according to Masahiro Ito, he vaguely remembered driving to Silent Hill with a corpse in the backseat of his car. Lying figures attack by spewing a spray of poisonous mist from an opening in their torso, which will knock James back and force him to recover for a few seconds before being able to resume his attack. They are slow moving while standing upright. However, when knocked down, they can easily hit James by skittering very quickly along the ground, easily outrunning the player. The Mannequin is a headless, armless dummy monster that James and Maria encounter in Silent Hill 2. They will often lie dormant until the player draws near to them, at which point they attack. James's first encounter with this monster is in room 205 of the Woodside Apartments. It will spring to life immediately after retrieving the flashlight from a mannequin that is dressed in Mary's clothes. The mannequins are a manifestation of James's unconscious mind, and are among the 9 delusions he faces throughout the story. They represent his natural urges, his inclinations, and memories belonging to a hospital. 3 years prior to the events of Silent Hill 2, his wife Mary became stricken with a deadly illness that left her bedridden and hospitalized. She was eventually killed late in her illness by her husband, who fell into a state of guilt and denial afterwards and repressed the memory. The mannequins appear as sets of upper and lower legs, bound to an intermediate torso, resembling that of a mannequin dummy. They lack a fully human appearance because James refuses to remember who they represent or what he did to his late wife. The creatures bear leg braces on each set of their legs, which are similar to the phenolic orthosis that Mary needed to walk during her illness. The creatures have tubes on their abdomens, which are also owed to James's memories of the hospital. As with other monsters in the game that manifest from Sunderland's psyche, they are exuded and tortured by Pyramid Head. These are the acts of his mind attempting to erase the delusions and force him to remember the reality of his actions. The creatures stand completely still at plain sight, like statues, and react strongly to the flashlight, suddenly becoming inanimate and attacking when the light strikes them from a relatively short distance. This is in contrast to most other creatures, which react to light even when they are far from the light source. A mannequin will also come to life when James steps within a radius of 3 to 5 feet around it, even with his flashlight off. Although they are not overly strong creatures, they may be hard to detect in dark environments due to their immobility, which can trick the player's vision by making them blend in with the environment. Mannequins also have the advantage of stealth, as the radio will not emit static to warn the player of their presence until they start moving. The Creeper is an insectoid monster appearing in Silent Hill and Silent Hill 2. This creature is a manifestation of Alessa Gillespie's dislike of insects, a character from the first Silent Hill. They were first encountered by Harry Mason in Silent Hill 1, when the town was transfigured by Alessa's psychic powers. They are hostile to humans, moving with great speed and reacting strongly to light. After the collapse of Alessa's other world, the power of the town intensified to the point of manifesting the unconscious minds of ordinary people. By the time James Sunderland came to Silent Hill in search of his wife, the creepers could still be seen throughout the town. In Silent Hill 2, they attack James and Maria by nipping at their ankles. Their small size and flat bodies make them difficult targets. However, the protagonist can stomp on the creatures in order to kill them. The Mandarin is a monster that James Sunderland encounters in the town. They are rarely encountered, only appearing in 3 areas in the entire game. They can be found hanging below mesh grating floors by the tips of their arms. Mandarins are first encountered when James uses a passage that connects the 2 ends of Saul Street, which can only be accessed after progressing through the events that take place in Brookhaven Hospital. They appear to be distorted female figures with grotesquely large arms and a straitjacket-like garment covering their upper body, while their legs dangle uselessly below them. Their arms and face also appear to have large lips. According to the Book of Lost Memories, the Mandarin symbolizes feelings of overwhelming, incomprehensible anguish and helplessness. For this reason, they are not permitted to stand above ground. The novelization also mentions they originated from a desire to escape. It is possible that they are doomed to hang onto the metal grating for eternity, and should they fall, they will disappear into the unknown abyss below. Similarly, James's psyche is hanging from the proverbial thread. Should he lose his remaining sanity and the will to live, he too will fall into the darkness and never return. The fact that the Mandarins are not allowed above ground and only appear in places that are dark could possibly point to repressed emotions, most notably guilt. The game's conclusion reveals that the memory of Mary's murder was suppressed along with his guilt. The black tentacles that jut from their lips should James walk over them could be the pangs of his consciousness, calling him to remember his crime. The Bubblehead Nurses are monsters appearing in the town. A manifestation of James's subconscious, they were first encountered when James entered Brookhaven Hospital after coming to Silent Hill, Maine in search of his deceased wife. They can be seen both in the hospital and the streets of South Vale. The Bubblehead Nurse is a female humanoid creature, roughly the same height as Mary Sunderland, that appears in a low-cut Brookhaven Hospital nurse uniform. Their heads are wrapped in a thin vinyl mask containing a semi-liquid covering the surface of their face. The liquid-trapped mask gives the head a swollen appearance, reminiscent of Mary's swollen head during her illness and hospitalization. The bottom center of the mask takes the shape of an infant's face, sometimes obscured by a red square covered in dry dirt or blood tied to the save points and the 9 red squares that James encounters at the end of the game. The nurses are seen constantly twitching and jittering as they suffocate and attempt to shake the liquid-filled masks from their heads. The suffocation that the nurses experience is also representative of James' subconscious memory of smothering Mary with a pillow. A dirtier brown-tinted variant of the nurses can be seen in the other world, wearing tattered clothing, a mask with spikes driven through it, and a protrusion coming from their back and shoulder. According to creature designer Masahiro Ito, this variant of the nurse was a last-minute addition to the game, so the symbolism behind it wavers slightly. However, it serves as a metaphor for Mary on her sickbed. Despite fan speculation, the protrusion is in no way connected to the parasite or puppet nurses from the original game. Ito clarified that the design of the nurse reflects James's subconscious and not Mary's feelings. The prisoners are 2 unseen monsters found in the Toluca prison in Silent Hill 2. They are located in one cell in each of the prison-keeping hallways and seem to chant ritual in a deep, monstrous voice. Although the radio does not emit static in their presence, the Book of Lost Memories nonetheless identifies them as monsters. Although the player cannot physically see them, this does not stop James from readying a weapon, attacking, and even killing the creatures using a firearm. However, they are completely harmless, and James is in no danger from the creatures whatsoever. The prisoners seem to chant the word ritual, and it's unclear why the prisoners are there. One prevalent theory is that the prisoners were discussing a ritual involving inmates being sacrificed by the executioners of the prison. The prisoner could also represent Mary, as it is a defensiveless being entrapped in a room, and James puts it out of its misery. The prisoners could also represent James himself, given his guilt for murdering his wife, which left him as a prisoner to his own shame. The Abstract Daddy is a monster found in claustrophobic areas of Silent Hill, Maine. The creature is first encountered as a boss fight in the labyrinth, later resurfacing as a less durable enemy type in the hallways of the Lakeview Hotel in the Otherworld. Seen from the point of view of James Sunderland, it serves as both an abstract manifestation of Angela's sexual trauma and the memories of James' terminally ill wife. Angela is one of the few characters James encounters while exploring Silent Hill. Growing up as a child, Angela suffered horrific sexual abuse from her father and brother. Timidly and severely traumatized as a result, Angela eventually stabbed her father in the throat after a failed attempt to run away from home, and later killed her brother by unknown means. However, her actions left her in an intense state of guilt and self-blame. As she contemplated suicide, her damaged psyche drew her to the town of Silent Hill, where the darkest parts of her psyche were manifested into monsters and nightmarish delusions made by the town. Meanwhile, other individuals with darkness in their hearts became drawn to the town as well. James came to the town searching for his wife Mary, who he had believed died 3 years earlier from her terminal illness, until he received a mysterious letter instructing him to find her in Silent Hill. As James went deeper and deeper into his delusions, his nightmare eventually crossed with Angela's, where he encountered the Abstract Daddy creatures. Abstract Daddy is a creature resembling two figures intertwined in an intimate posture. It is a manifestation of the trauma Angela sustained from the sexual abuse by her father and brother, seen abstractly through the psyche of James Sunderland. The lower sphere head of the monster represents Angela and the pain that was inflicted on her. Because it manifested from her subconscious, James does not see it in the same way that she does. To James, the frame of the creature was influenced by his memories of Mary when she was bedridden. This contributed to it resurfacing in the Lakeview Hotel, where the two of them stayed on vacation before her disease. Although Ito chooses to leave Angela's version of the Abstract Daddy to the player's imagination, he believes that it is more disturbing than what James thought. He stated that if they depicted the monster from her perspective, she would not have been as fascinating as a character. The meaning of the two frames containing humanoid torsos encased in stretched skin in the Lakeview Hotel staircase is synchronized with the meaning of the Abstract Daddy. The figures in the frames represent Angela's father and brother, respectively. It is possible that James saw the staircase itself differently from Angela. The Flesh Lip, also known as Lustful Lips, is a terrifying boss encountered in the hospital. James meets 3 of them after Laura tricks him, locking him inside Examination Room 2 on the first floor of the Brookhaven Hospital. After defeating all 3 Flesh Lips, James is transported to the Otherworld Hospital. It appears as a bloated, malformed mass of meat and flesh with human-like limbs jutting out from its top and bottom, suspended in a rusty metal frame. A pair of large, smacking lips appear on the bottom of the creature, and it attacks by strangling the player with its legs. According to the Book of Lost Memories, the lattice represents a bed and the mouth located on the abdomen represents Mary's mouth. The monster's lips are reflections of Mary's mouth, which abused James with cruel words during her last days. The cage-like contraption each flesh lip is held within could also be symbolic of how Mary was confined to a bed in her terminal illness, as this greatly limited her freedom. There being 3 of them may also represent the 3 years of Mary's illness. Pyramid Head is a humanoid monster in the Silent Hill franchise, first appearing in Silent Hill 2. His red helmet and butcher's attire echo the executioners of the town's past, who worshipped the Angel of Rebirth, Valtiel. He is a manifestation of James Sunderland's guilt and desire for punishment, existing to keep him human and help him remember his past actions. The monster wields the Great Knife and Great Spear, instruments of James' inner torment. By the end of the game, a second Pyramid Head manifests. There is a supernatural power that surrounds Silent Hill that has the ability to manifest elements of the unconscious mind. In the early history of the town, Native Americans used this to seemingly communicate with both nature and their dead relatives. Their land was eventually stolen from them by European settlers. Because of the town's power, a mysterious cult began to form that took control over much of its infrastructure. One of the deities they worship is Valtiel, who serves as an angel of rebirth and a being close to God who has appeared in many forms throughout the town's history. The cult began performing ritualistic executions, wearing red hoods and an executioner's outfit modeled after him. Right before Mary contracted a lethal disease, 3 years before the events of Silent Hill 2, she and her husband James visited the town of Silent Hill on vacation. One of the locations they visited was the Silent Hill Historical Society, which contained paintings and artifacts relating to the executioners of the town's past. One such painting in particular, which showed a stylized portrayal of an executioner standing among caged corpses, is one painting that that stuck in James's mind. In the final stages of her disease, Mary fell into a state of agony and became verbally abusive towards James. It was during this that James smothered her with a pillow to relieve her of her pain, and because of his growing resentment towards her, he instantly fell into a state of regret and denial, later receiving a letter from someone claiming to be Mary, telling him to find her in Silent Hill. With the memory of killing her having been repressed, he traveled to Silent Hill to find her. As he arrived, he found himself in a dream reality state, where the darkest elements of his subconscious were manifested into twisted monsters and scenarios. In his search for Mary, he made his way to the Woodside Apartments, where he encountered Pyramid Head, a monster similar to the painting he had observed in the Historical Society years earlier. He hid in a closet as the creature abused and slaughtered two monsters known as Mannequins. Having evaded Pyramid Head, James encountered it again in the apartment building next door, slaughtering a monster known as a lying figure. Locked in the room, James fought the monster in self-defense as it proceeded to attack him. After outrunning the assault, James watched as Pyramid Head fled the encounter upon hearing a siren blare, descending a water-filled staircase. At the apartments, James interrupted a suicidal Angela, taking her knife before she has the chance to use it. He also met Eddie, an often bullied man who was self-conscious about his weight. After going through the buildings, James followed the letter's instructions and made his way to Rosewater Park. While Mary was nowhere to be found, he met a woman strongly resembling his wife named Maria, who begged him to escort her through the dangerous town. After searching through the area, they came to Brookhaven Hospital, where the town cycled to an even deeper part of the nightmare known as the Otherworld. When they entered the hospital basement, Pyramid Head chased behind them as they sprinted to an elevator. James managed to make it to safety, but Maria was slaughtered for moving too slowly. The elevator took him to the first floor of the hospital, where a distraught James found a note instructing him to go to the Historical Society, which he had visited years prior. Upon arriving, he descended down a long stairway and kept jumping down mysterious dark holes until arriving in a labyrinth in an even darker part of the nightmare. Finding his way through the labyrinth, James found Maria mysteriously alive and alternating between Mary's personality and her own. She tells James of the time he and Mary spent at the Lakeview Hotel, and he leaves to navigate his way through the labyrinth. When James finds Maria again, she has once again been murdered. James makes his way to the Lakeview Hotel, where he finds a videotape recording of himself killing Mary, suddenly recalling his past actions and coming face to face with his guilt. In the lobby, he encounters Pyramid Head again, this time with a second Pyramid Head by his side.
Leave her alone! Leave us both the hell alone!
One of them proceeds to kill Maria in front of a distraught James. James realizes that his subconsciousness created them because of his guilty desire for punishment, and decides that he no longer needs them. After a conflict, the two Pyramid Heads kill themselves, having fulfilled their purpose. Pyramid Head is a figure of James's guilt and inner torment, manifesting from the part of his mind that desires punishment. He is described as a distorted memory of the executioners, and explains that Silent Hill was once a town of executions. A reflection of James, the monster is a masculine humanoid who takes on an appearance similar to the executioners of the town's cult, with a red rusted pyramid-shaped helmet over his head, donning butcher's wardrobe, leather boots, and white executioner gloves. James and Pyramid Head's shoulders stand at the same height. The helmet itself represents James's torment, with the sharp corners suggesting the possibility of pain. Pyramid Head exists to keep James human and help him realize that he is guilty, often attacking other monsters to fulfill his role. The scene where James hides in the closet with Pyramid Head abusing the mannequins represents the conflict in his mind. His fear of facing his inner demons manifested itself as Pyramid Head attacking other monsters to remove visions from his psyche. To this day, it is unknown what Pyramid Head looks like underneath the helmet. Masahiro Ito stated that he never designed Pyramid Head's face. He clarified that hidden face does not mean without a face, and that he hopes that players see him as another James. However, he has refused to reveal what the character truly looks like underneath the helmet, believing that it is more effective to leave it to the player's imagination. He added that he knows what the character looks like underneath the helmet, even though he chooses not to reveal it. However, Ito has stated that the Pyramid Heads are not men, but creatures instead. Mary is the final boss of Silent Hill 2 and is encountered after climbing a metal stairwell at the end of the Fog World Lakeview Hotel. James encounters either a manifestation of Mary or Maria in the form of Mary in the game's final scenes. She appears as a version of Mary's deceased corpse displayed in a metal frame, similar to the flesh lip, likely referencing Mary's hospitalization. She is suspended in the metal frame, screaming and upside down. The frame has sharp spikes at the end, referencing Mary's pain and suffering. Mary wears some sort of triangular hood, restricting her head movement. The hood is inspired by that of a nun and appears attached to her frame, as if she is unable to escape from it. The hood also has a massive, long, dark tentacle, which Mary can use to strangle James. According to the Book of Lost Memories, Mary's form represents and embodies James' conflicting emotions toward Mary during her final days. When Mary was ill, she had overwhelming feelings of anger, sorrow, pain, loneliness, helplessness, denial, and a deep disgust with her body due to her disease. She had felt that her predicament was unfair. As Mary had said in her letter, "When I first learned that I was going to die, I just didn't want to accept it." Mary had been conflicted and confused about her true feelings. She would express her vacillation between wanting and not wanting to die. She would also violently lash out at James, as does the boss. The metal lattice probably symbolizes Mary's sense of confinement and her having been invalidated and bedridden. Ironically, Mary can also use the tentacle to strangle James, similarly to how he had asphyxiated her. The monster wears some sort of tight headgear, meaning her hair is invisible. This could be a reference to Mary's hair loss caused by her disease. In turn, James had become likewise conflicted and confused about his true feelings, concerning whether or not he still loved Mary, how properly he had been acting towards her, how hard he looked and tried to find a cure, and if he could live without her. To add on to this, James killed Mary prematurely by suffocating her with a pillow, raising even more philosophical questions and confusion. In all of the endings except the Maria ending, the boss actually is Maria, meaning that the boss is also probably symbolic of Maria to a certain extent. It may symbolize some of Maria's own feelings. In essence, the boss could symbolize the duality and dual nature between Mary and Maria. It could also represent Maria's anger and frustration towards James for rejecting her. Despite this, the boss is still simply called Mary in the Book of Lost Memories, likely referencing James's confusion between Mary and Maria, since James often mistaked Maria as Mary. In the Maria ending, the boss identifies herself as Mary and mentions Maria as a separate person. Despite this, it is not entirely clear that the monster is in fact Mary. During the ending cutscene after killing the monster, James says to himself, "That wasn't Mary. Mary's gone. That was just something He doesn't complete the sentence, leading to various different interpretations. Theories range from the monster being a complete hallucination that James imagined in his depressed state, all the way to it actually still being Maria and simply deceiving James in order to torture him. Click this video here to find out the disturbing lore of every Silent Hill 3 enemy. Thank you for watching.